Kia ora, good morning everybody. Good to see you all, and today's an important day for us. We have a $30 billion trading relationship with ASEAN, as you know. We're upgrading today at lunchtime to our comprehensive strategic partnership. That of course creates more investment opportunities back at home, but also more export opportunities for our businesses as well. All of that's designed to lift incomes and wages for our people back at home. So really important day today.
Just on the Halal East Asia Summit, we saw the Malaysian Prime Minister talking about how it's really important to keep dialogue up, putting cooperation ahead of conflict. What did you make of those comments, Prime Minister?
Yeah, I fully agree, and what you've seen, I think, three significant events. One is the accession of Timor-Leste. When you think us sitting there during the lunch yesterday reflecting on, it was 26 years ago that Australian and New Zealand troops were there at the formation of that nation. I met with Prime Minister Gusmao this morning, and we talked a little bit about that as well. When you think about what's happened with respect to the Cambodia-Thailand ceasing of hostilities, which Prime Minister Anwar had a lot to do with, but so did all the other ASEAN leaders. And I think those are the things that you look at and say, they're very good examples where diplomacy comes to play here as well, which is really important.
Prime Minister, the fact that a framework has been agreed between China and the United States, how important is that to you? And do you think it speaks to the importance of these forums and how they bring together the opportunity for diplomacy? Yeah,
look, I spoke with Premier Li from China last night, and he was feeling confident about the framework that they had agreed with the Americans in advance of President Xi and President Trump meeting in Korea. What we really want to see is, with the two biggest economies in the world, to be able to have it calm and de-escalated gives a lot of certainty to everybody else. And as you've seen, a lot of what otherwise it creates chaos and it creates a lack of certainty and a lack of clarity, and as a result businesses don't invest and consumers don't spend. And so that's the second and third order consequences of the US and China not being working together for mutual benefit.
The Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia spoke about how this Halal agreement opens up a market of potentially 700 million people in Asia. How important is that agreement to the wider economy of New Zealand, and what could it lead to down in the future?
It's really important. I mean, if you just take Malaysia alone, they have about a $1.4 billion US market for meat alone, all types of meat. New Zealand sells currently about $60 million into Malaysia alone, with halal standards being, and they import anywhere from 75 to 95% of their meat products into Malaysia. So that's just a huge upside potential, and for us to agree with the Malaysians a standard to streamline it, to make it really much more seamless, and so everyone's got clarity in the system, is actually a really good sign for our exporters. And as you heard today, I mean, just here in Malaysia, I think it's about a $14 billion cosmetics market as well, and personal care and nutraceuticals and a whole bunch of other categories as well, where New Zealanders do well, and we've got good entrepreneurial businesses. There's just huge opportunity. So it's been a lot of work. I mean, when I first came here, sat down with Prime Minister Anwar, this was our number one thing to focus on, because it can unlock a lot of growth, and having a common understanding and then a common process by which audits are undertaken, how logistics are managed, all of those kinds of issues is a lot of detail. And really we want to see Malaysia emerge ultimately as a regional hub for the standards around halal. And as you know, as you've seen with respect to Malaysia's influence in the Middle East, that's also very important too.
When will that actually kick in? When will people be able to see sort of the fruits of that?
It kicks in I don't have an exact date for you, but it kicks in very shortly, and we're just proud of the effort of both officials from all sides to actually understand the issue, to find really practical, common sense ways through it that actually leads to a high standard.
What have the problems been with the
Sorry,
was it actually signed today, or why was it not actually signed today?
Oh, it's just an agreement. It now needs to get ratified, which will happen very quickly with their system. But more importantly, then it starts a series of audits that come down and check our facilities. That historically has been a little bit ad hoc, and we just want to tighten that up.
Yeah. So what are the issues with the status quo? Because there are already accredited halal certification bodies in New Zealand, right? I think through the Malaysian government. So has that not been working smoothly enough?
It hasn't been working smoothly enough, and it's been too inconsistent. And so for many of our different businesses in New Zealand, the standards have been applied a little inconsistently. And so for us, it's really about just streamlining it, stripping it right back, and saying, right, for anyone in New Zealand, and we've got businesses here like Silver Fern Farms who are selling already into Malaysia, but there's many other smaller operators and other businesses that want to do the same, and this will just make it much easier. And they need clarity about what the rules are, what the rules aren't. They don't want to get in a situation where they're sending product to Malaysia and somewhere it gets stopped on the border because it hasn't met a certain standard which someone's interpreted differently. So we want just a common, simple set of interpretations and standards. And I know it's a very complex area, it's very technical, it's very detailed, but it's really important. It's about why there's been a lot of good work from our officials to get us to this point.
Will this have any benefits for the Muslim community in New Zealand? Radio New Zealand's reported that although a lot of the halal meat is produced halal, it's not labelled as such, so Muslims in New Zealand have said they have issues identifying whether or not something halal. Will this have any effect on it?
Well, I'm sure it will help. I mean, as you know, there is a global shortage of red meat all around the world, and there will likely be out till 2030 before herds are rebuilt around the world. The same is actually happening on dairy. There's a gap in dairy production out until 2030 as well. So the fact that our exporters see opportunities in a market like this, they build their businesses around the standards to deliver for Malaysia and for other halal countries and markets will actually help the domestic production as well.
Do you expect that Palestine will be raised in your meeting with the Malaysian PM today?
No.
You don't expect that he's going to raise it as a point of contention?
That was quite a key point he made in his opening remarks yesterday, though. It's something that they care quite.
Oh, I made similar remarks in my case as well, which was to say, look, we want to see peace in the Middle East, and we want to see the pathway to the two-state solution. And I've spoken to many of these leaders about, for example, our position on recognition. But as I've been saying all along, we're all very, very united on making sure the ceasefire that is now there actually sticks, and that both Israel and Hamas follow through on their obligations that come next.
Did the Pacific region come up in any of your conversations with Timor-Leste?
No, a little bit. Just on sort of, obviously they sit as partly Pacific, partly ASEAN country as well. They obviously had a choice, I think 14 years ago, was where they wanted to join the Pacific Island Forum or ASEAN, and they put their, they focused on ASEAN. But as I said yesterday, in 2027, the Prime Minister Wong and I spoke about it again last night, we've got a great opportunity when he's chairing ASEAN and I'm chairing Pacific Island Forum, and given how close Singapore and New Zealand are, is to be able to bring our regions together and actually work out how we can have some interplay between the two sub-regions.
Why has it taken so long for these relations to build, given many of these countries are observer nations of PIF?
Sorry, in what way?
Why have these relations taken so long to form, given that many countries...
Between ASEAN and the Pacific Island Forum nations? Look, I mean, there are some countries that have been, involved in the Pacific, but they're all wanting to get more involved in the Pacific. It's sometimes difficult for them to work out how best to do that, and that's where we play a very important role, I think. I think we can actually say, look, we have a series of development projects, a series of infrastructure projects. Would you like to consider joining with us to actually build out a renewable electricity supply in a Pacific Ocean? There's all sorts of things that I think we can do together, and that's what Prime Minister Wong and I talked about when he came to visit us.
You talk a lot about farmer confidence. How significant is this halal agreement in terms of exports?
It's hugely significant. I mean, as you know, we've had a record year in dairy, we've had a record year in red meat, we've had a record year in horticulture, we've had $12 billion added to our exports. You would have started to see our trading surplus, our trading deficit's been eroded, and we've made some very good progress. This just helps our farmer industry, and I know it's innovation, and it's about tailoring our products to the consumers that we are wanting to sell to, and this gives massive clarity around that.
Are you a fan of Labour's new capital gains tax?
Look, I just say to you, I'm here trying to make sure that I'm backing Kiwi businesses who want to take a risk and build their businesses. That's why we're doing agreements like the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. That's why we're getting rid of red tape through the Halal agreement. I don't think taxing our way out of recession is the way forward.
You said a little while ago that we don't want to have an economy where people just keep flipping houses all the time, right? And is this not kind of a solution?
This is a tax on every single business in New Zealand. Think about that corner dairy owner that actually has to operate from premises in a building that's going to get taxed, that ends up adding cost to that business owner, that ends up putting a cost out to the consumer. So, look, I mean, we've seen 4 botched policy announcements from Labor over the last 2 weeks. This looks like another one I've noticed today. But I just say to you, taxing our way out of the mess that we've been in, that Labor gave us, more spending, more borrowing, more taxing, isn't the way forward. That's what created the premise.
What do you make of the fact that it was leaked? What do you make of the fact?
Well, that's, clearly, they had a leak policy this week. Last week they had Aisha Viral announce a policy that Chris Hipkins knew nothing about, a policy on gaming which had nothing to do with what was going on in gaming, and then, the first one, which was a future fund where still I don't know where $800 million worth of healthcare expenditure is going to come from now, given it's not being directed into healthcare.
Do you want to see an economy where houses continue to appreciate after 2027?
What we want to see is good
at a reasonable rate and business capital.
Yeah, what's really important is what we want to see is just good, consistent, steady, moderate house price growth. But the reality is we want to see wages growing faster than inflation, and that's what we have been able to deliver over the course of our government, despite the difficult situation that we're cleaning up. But that's really what we've got to see in the long term.
You were talking about aspiration this morning on Twitter about this. Would you have earlier on in your career not gone as hard, not been as ambitious, if you were worried that houses you might buy might be taxed later on, or would you still have just been
I think there's a lot of New Zealanders that I meet each and every day who have ambitions to be successful. They want to build businesses. They want to provide for their family, for employees, for their community. They have aspirations to become wealthier, and as a result, just taxing New Zealanders. Let's be clear. Labor used to be the party of working people. Now it just wants to tax everyone.
But do you think it's fair wealthier by getting property?
Sorry?
Get wealthier by having their houses appreciate in value?
Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry, Henry.
To get wealthier by having their houses get more expensive, or to get wealthier by actually building businesses?
Sorry, welfare or wealthier?
Wealthier.
Oh, wealthier.
Wealthier.
Sorry.
We're talking about people getting wealthier by their houses becoming more expensive over time. Is that the kind of wealth?
No, the way that we need to do is we need to get New Zealand on a really strong growth track, and that's the way that we get people wealthier. And when you look at why other countries are wealthier than New Zealand, it comes down to 5 things: world-class education system, more embracing of technology and innovation, get rid of red tape, modern reliable infrastructure, and trade and investment. And it doesn't matter which country you study and look at, those are the 5 things that lift the collective living standards. And that's what we have to do in New Zealand, because for the last 30 years we've worked incredibly hard, but we haven't been able to lift our collective living standards because we haven't addressed fundamentally those 5 issues.
Do you think it's fair that you haven't paid tax on the properties that you've flipped since you've been Prime Minister?
Well, I haven't flipped properties, but it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about New Zealanders, and I'm just saying to you, actually taxing Kiwi businesses is not the way forward. We want to grow Kiwi businesses. We want to back entrepreneurs that want to grow companies and build companies. And actually, this is a tax on every single business in New Zealand. And I just say to you, as I said, Labor used to be for working people. They didn't support tax cuts for working New Zealanders, and now they want to load up more taxes on businesses. Last week they want to do something else and take $800 million out of the healthcare system. So it's all over the shop, right? It's a very uncooked policy.
Labor says it wants to campaign and implement a CGT, but it wouldn't. Chris Hipkins wouldn't rule out potentially implementing a wealth tax from the Greens or Te Pāti Māori. He said that he's focused on the Labor Party policy. Do you think he should come out and provide a position on coalition policies? Well, and would you, if you're in that sort of position?
Well, I can guarantee you we're not implementing a capital gains tax. But I just say to you, the Labor Party position, and just go back and look at the record of what Chris Hipkins has said about a capital gains tax over the years. He is Mr. Flip-Flop. It is all over the place. So, frankly, I don't really put too much store on what he says about taxes. All I can tell you is, it doesn't matter whether it's Labor, Greens, Te Pāti Māori, they want to tax more, they want to borrow more, they want to spend more. And that's what got us into this ungodly mess, and that's what we're working hard to get us out of.
Do Kiwis deserve free GP visits?
Sorry?
Do Kiwis deserve free GP visits? 90,
well, we actually have it set up under community cards, as you know, and for seniors who are exempted, but we also have 90% of New Zealanders that pay less than $70 for their GP visits. This is a government that's invested more around GP funding than any previous government in a generation. So, we're doing everything we can. We're expanding through 24/7 services to make it more accessible, more timely, so that New Zealanders can get access to healthcare. We're making some good progress. You've seen, since we introduced on July 1 those primary care technology visits or tech visits, that's been hugely taken up in rural New Zealand across the country.
Last couple of minutes, guys.
Sorry, Tom.
So the new Air New Zealand CEO says he wants subsidies to keep more regional, more financially challenged regional routes open, and he's also suggested lower levies. As a former Air New Zealand boss, where do you stand on that debate?
Look, my view is you want Air New Zealand to be the best business it can be, and that means it needs to get itself, focus on its own performance commercially, culturally, and also in terms of customer satisfaction. And frankly, giving subsidies to Air New Zealand is money that we don't get to spend on health and education.